Hi everybody, good morning from Riyadh. This is UNCCD COP16 and we are at the final day of this UNCCD hosted by the Presidency of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Last show, last tip, and if you are the last here at the venue and if you are a chocolate fan like me, you should know that there's a cafeteria right next to the Action Dome where you can find all types of chocolates, brownies, and everything you need to stay awake and strong. And of course, enjoy a good time from meeting to meeting. Today we are going to talk about resilience. Resilience Day at COP16 highlights global challenges such as degradation, desertification, drought, water scarcity, and sand and dust storm, which threaten billions of lives, ecosystems, and livelihoods. A series of events emphasizes proactive solutions, including early warning systems, nature-based approaches, and the ambitious goal to restore 1 billion hectares of degraded land by 2030, while advancing water security and drought preparedness through effective management and policy collaboration. So it's a huge goal, but how we can achieve this? Let's ask to our first guest. And we continue on Resilience Day with this series of interviews. And with me is Rachel McDonald. She's Deputy Director General of the International Water Management Institute. Rachel, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me to join this conversation.
No, it's our pleasure. Let's talk about resilience. I want to ask you, I know that you are going to be talking today about the Drought Action Catalyst, right? So I want to ask you, how does the Drought Action Catalyst aim to bridge the gap between known state solutions, developers, and governments to deliver impactful actions on the ground?
So, what are the impacts of droughts? Well, of course, they impact the amount of water that we have access, but they also impact our food systems, our health, our environment, different people, the livelihoods of people. So, if we're going to bring actions on the ground, we need to be able to bring in solutions that tackle these various aspects, and we need to stop it being fragmented. At the moment, they're pretty fragmented how they come in. So the idea, the catalyst, is to bring together solutions, tested solutions in the local context to help drought managers, the governments, but also the on-the-ground organizations, the farmers' organizations, as well as the Ministry of Agriculture, or on-the-ground water managers, as well as the Ministry of Water. So we're trying to bring actions that can be able to relieve both the shock of droughts, but also the long-term mitigation for increasing drought intensity and frequencies.
That sounds like a plan. Actually, it's something really nice to do. And how can Resilience Day inspire, for example, new commitments and foster collaboration to address the interconnected challenges of desertification, drought, and water scarcity, for example?
And of course, they're all linked.
Yeah.
Water is life, as we heard on the very first day here, and by the ministers, they were setting the scene. Water is life, so we need to be able to hold back that water in the land, to be able to support natural vegetation, natural cover, but we also need to be able to keep that water taking into our groundwater systems or into our rivers, so that we can then be able to support drought mitigation. So it's very connected. Nature is very connected in the way we use the different parts of nature, whether it's the land or the soils or the water systems for our food production or wherever it might be. So the idea is we need to connect that. And I think it's wonderful here at the UNCCD, we are having a much more joined up movement to addressing these issues.
And how can the Drought Action Catalyst serve as a model for multi-stakeholders collaboration to protect vulnerable communities, for example?
So what we know is that no organization, no research center, no private sector company has all the answers.
Yeah.
So the catalyst is about integrating those answers. Who's the best at this? Who has the comparative advantage? And what can they bring? And what tested solutions? And so the catalyst is about joining together our capabilities. It's not necessarily about spending time developing new areas, but it's about joining those together to bring that drought resilience that is so badly needed. I mean, we're talking to people who oversee livestock. In so many communities, livestock is critical, but we know droughts because there's no forage, there's no fodder for them. What can we do to look after the animals, the goats, sheep or even the cattle. What can we do to help that? How can we help with the grains, the wheat production, the maize production, the rice production that is so critical to diets? How can we then look at other crops around this and what can we do for that? So it's very much looking at the totality of solutions needed rather than expertise in a particular one. And that's what the Catalyst is, a platform for bringing together those different areas and different case studies.
And why resilience, the concept, is so important to achieve these kind of goals in land restoration, and why or how we can teach the people from outside these walls about resilience?
So what is resilience? It comes at every single level. It's local actions. It's about regional actions, because if we build resilience somewhere, we don't want that to be at the expense of another area. And it's also at a national level. So we can catalyze policies, you can catalyze incentives, you can catalyze solutions across that. So resilience is about helping, of course, where it happens is at the local. But you can't just build it at the local. So resilience is helping people, but restoring the environment that people live off, restoring those fundamentals of food, land, and water which is a part of our existence.
Absolutely true. Rachel, thank you very much for being with us, answering these questions, so important besides for the UNCCD and the goals.
Well, we're excited for the UNCCD. We're seeing the on-the-ground actions through the Riyadh Action Agenda, but we're also seeing the negotiations of the parties. So we are hopeful for the outcomes for this.
We are hopeful. We are humble also.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right, my friends, so let's keep with this Resilience Day. And I'm with Robert Stefanski, Chief of Agricultural Meteorology Division of the World Meteorological Organization. So Robert, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you. Welcome. Glad to be here.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure for us. So we are going to talk about resilience. And I want to kick off this interview asking you, Resilience Day at COP16 focus on tackling challenges, right? Like desertification, drought, water scarcity, and sun and dust storms. Mm-hmm. What are the key highlights we should look for?
So the point here is, again, the challenges. And with drought, sand and dust storms, and water scarcity, they actually encompass almost half of the Sustainable Development Goals. And so what we're focused on is how do we help solve, number 2, zero hunger, life for land, water, and climate action. So a lot of these issues, we need an integrated approach. So resilience means not only you have to get deeper into the society and integrating the ministries and able to develop plans. And so the idea here is resilience, example, in drought, right? Currently, people have a reactive approach. There's a drought. Remember the issue maybe in Cape Town a few years ago. They were able to put in measures to keep that no water day, that zero water day, keep it into the future by doing a lot of practices. What we're advocating is to have a plan beforehand so you can integrate the different elements of society, which includes agriculture, water use for agriculture, urban areas, ecosystems, making sure all those systems have available water and are resilient to the next event. So this is the key. Likewise for sand and dust storms and even water scarcity. We had a side event yesterday where we were comparing the challenges, let's say in this region, where they have water scarcity, basically it doesn't rain, so they're a constant, lack of water, and they have many different adaptation mechanisms using wastewater, conserving water, that maybe other areas in the world might need in the future with the influence of climate change and the increased frequency of droughts and even floods. So it's trying to look at an integrative approach so societies are more resilient. But this takes a cross-discipline approach. So that's why for the day, we have WMO, my organization, the World Bank, and the World Food Program. So we're going to highlight the different solutions that can be taken to make countries and societies more resilient in the face of these hazards, such as droughts, sand and dust storms, and the ongoing, in a lot of regions, water scarcity, where they have a challenge of finding water year-round.
Specifically, Robert, how does the day emphasize scaling up land restoration, strengthening early warning system, and promoting, for example, water security?
So we targeted countries and colleagues and experts from around the world. We focused on ministers to give examples of what they've done in their countries. So we have, for example, a minister from Niger who will talk about how they can deal with drought and sand and dust storms, and so for the next event they're more resilient and adapt to the current situation. So we're looking at a number of projects that our partners have across the three organizations and beyond that can highlight issues. I know the World Bank will talk about a project in Eswatini that they're very heavily involved in, and examples there. We have some colleagues there. The World Food Program obviously has projects around the world. And we'll focus, at least from my side, from WMO, on looking at integrated drought management. And we have 3 pillars of that management: monitoring early warning, risk assessments and vulnerability, and then preparedness and response. And you need all of those 3 things to develop a preparedness plan. So the idea here is, how do we make countries prepared so they can be resilient for the future? Again, especially for droughts, it's a slow onset event. In a lot of areas, it happens every 5 to 7 years. We know they'll be more frequent with climate change. But even if you take away climate change, droughts will always happen, and still countries are not that prepared. For example, you've seen recently the issues, let's say, in Europe, in Germany the last few years, the Netherlands, where they had these barges sitting on mud because they had no water. So this impact is spreading around the world, and there's really no climate that is excluded from drought or water scarcity. It happens everywhere where humans are. It's a challenge to make sure that we integrate how we use the land and how we also use water efficiently so we can manage these issues. Some solutions at our hand are making sure you have buffers, let's say wetlands, that can actually mitigate the impacts of droughts and floods. So again, we cannot stop these hazards, but we can mitigate the impacts. So we're looking for solutions that can help with this. So again, some examples in integrating what's happened the last few days from the thematic events, thematic days, of solutions on how to save water, water efficiency, using wastewater, and that way we can be more resilient in the future to these climate hazards and avoid them becoming disasters.
At the beginning of your answer, you mentioned a series of organizations and institutions. So I want to ask you, how key is the collaboration into building bridges to achieve these kind of goals?
It's very key. So a few months ago, that's tied to this COP. So we have the Integrated Drought Management Program, which the WMO and the Global Water Partnership facilitate. We have about 45 partners, and we help countries deal with drought management. Out of that sort of 45 countries, 45 institutions, 15 helped organize this Drought Resilience Plus 10 conference. One of the main outcomes of that conference was better collaboration across the various sectors and organizations. So we try to set an example of coordinating with all the UN agencies as much as we can, institutions and governments, so they can better implement preparedness plans for drought, and also within part of the WMO, sand and dust storms as well. So this collaboration is very important on an international level, and our message to countries, and this is a challenge, of also doing that within the country, among the ministries. And this is one of the biggest challenges, Francisco, is that getting the countries to talk within the country to talk to one another. So we do spend a lot of time on capacity building and training and trying to get the countries to talk within among the ministries so they can do a better job of coordinating. It's a challenge. Also, we want to make it simple, right? We want to make sure that the countries have a simple plan and don't duplicate efforts from a different ministry. Because we recognize very much that their resources are very limited within the country, within the various ministries. So making sure they can talk to one another, and if we can do this from an international level to facilitate that dialogue is very important.
So it's key to maintain the dialogue and the partnerships. All right, Robert, thank you very much for your answers and for this so interesting conversation we had.
Thank you.
So we're still talking about resilience in this Resilience Day, and I'm with Manon Albagnac, Project Officer on CARI. So thank you very much for being with us, Manon.
Thank you for inviting me.
It's our pleasure actually to have you here. I wanted to start the interview asking you, what are some examples of successful resilient initiatives globally, and how can they adapt it and scale to other vulnerable regions?
Okay, so you know that I work for a civil society organization, and I work with several CSOs based in different countries, mainly in Africa, and they are now already contributing to supporting communities into being more resilient at small scale or larger scale. It depends on their means. Like by supporting farmers toward the agroecological transition of their farming systems, and supporting even territorial stakeholders in building more resilient food systems. Agroecology practices have shown great potential, and why they're very good, it's that they can be adapted in different regions of the world, based on the ecosystems aspect and based on the social aspects of these regions. So even if some experience sharing on precise techniques can be a good idea, when you have the agroecology principles of the FAO, you are already equipped to really adapt action to the specific context.
What kind of proactive measures, such as, for example, early warning system and nature-based solution, can effectively mitigate the risk of drought for the affected populations, for example?
Well, again, I will talk mainly about agricultural adaptation, but like working on specific crop varieties, on specific seeds that are more adapted to arid conditions and to drylands, various type of soils, can really help farmers to maintain their crops and their systems even in drought condition. Also working to combine livestock breeding and cropping can show great potential for adaptation, as you don't rely so much on external inputs, for example, for fertilization. And well, there are so many other practices are good actually, but another big aspect is to build social inclusion at the scale of territories, and through solidarity groups, through short value chains, and that also can be very effective in limiting the impacts like of the drought crisis that can have an impact on the national systems, but by building solidarity and resilience at local system, you really support more the communities to adapt here.
How important do you think is resilience to achieve these kind of goals you were talking, and how important is to build bridges between organizations and communities, for example?
Well, it's very important. You know, we are whatever the role that we play in our community, in our territory, we can be a farmer, we can be a consumer, we can be working on science. We all have this role to play, and we should all engage together at the territorial scale to exchange and build a common vision of how our territory can be resilient. I think in many places of the world we are not well prepared to what is coming ahead. For example, I live in the south of France, which is a place that's getting more and more dry because of climate change. It is actually now recognized as a dry area that falls under the UNCCD scope. And we will need to make choice as consumers, as citizens, in how we deal with water, in how we manage water. we will need to face maybe shortages of water, and I don't think we are yet very prepared for that, and we need like local mechanisms that will help us to foresee what is coming ahead of us and to find what are the pathways for adaptation. And it cannot rely only on our national decision maker and on top-down, decisions. We really need to build our capacities to think proactive management of the resources that are going to be more and more critical.
Absolutely, Manon. Thank you very much for being able to do this interview with us. All right, everybody, this was it. Thank you very much. This is our last show, the last daily digest here at the UNCCD COP16. Thank you very much in behalf of my name and the entire team for watching us, and see you maybe at the next COP.